My name is Emily, and until that night, I truly believed I understood people. I was wrong. For years, Sunday dinners had been my thing. Not just a habit or ritual. I hosted them, planned them, paid for them. Every single detail, from the wine selection to the table decor, passed through my hands first. I told myself it was love, that this is what family meant. Looking back now, I wonder if I was just buying a place in their lives. That evening felt no different, at least at first. The apartment was warm, glowing under soft amber lights. I had arrived early, as always, carrying 2 heavy bags filled with groceries. Fresh herbs, imported cheese, a roast that had cost more than I'd admit out loud. My son Ryan had insisted I didn't need to bring anything, but I always did. His wife, Claire, opened the door with a quick smile, the kind that never quite reached her eyes. "Emily, you didn't have to," she said, stepping aside. "I wanted to," I replied, like I always did. Inside, everything looked curated. Claire had a talent for appearances. The kind of home that felt like it belonged in a magazine, not a life. I noticed the new dining chairs immediately. Expensive, minimalist, uncomfortable. "I love what you've done with the place," I said. She barely acknowledged it. "Ryan picked them." Of course he did. I moved into the kitchen, instinctively taking over. It wasn't asked of me, but it was expected. I could feel it in the way Claire handed me utensils without looking, in the way she stepped back as I began cooking, like I was staff. Ryan came in a few minutes later, kissed my cheek, and smiled. "Hey, Mom. Smells amazing already." That smile, that was why I kept doing all of this. For him. Dinner went smoothly. Laughter, small talk, glasses clinking. Claire spoke about a new renovation idea. Something about redoing the guest room again. Always upgrading. Always changing. "Quality matters," she said. "You can't just live in something cheap forever." I smiled politely, though something about the comment lingered longer than it should have. After dinner, I stood at the sink, washing dishes I had brought, used, and now cleaned. The water ran warm over my hands, the rhythm familiar, almost comforting, until I heard her voice. Claire was in the living room, speaking on the phone. She must have thought I couldn't hear. "She's here again," she said, her tone light, almost amused. "Of course, she paid for everything." A pause. Then she laughed. "You know what she reminds me of? Those old women who try way too hard to feel included. It's kind of sad." My hands froze in the water. I didn't move, didn't breathe. "She shows up with those outdated clothes and acts like she belongs in this space," Claire continued. "Ryan feels obligated to her. I mean, she helps financially, so what can he do?" Another pause. "But honestly, it's embarrassing sometimes." The word hit harder than anything else. Embarrassing. I stared down at the plate in my hands. My reflection looked distorted in the glass. Older than I felt, smaller than I remembered. I had spent years building this illusion of belonging. And in one careless conversation, it shattered. I turned off the water slowly, placing the plate down with deliberate care. My chest felt tight, but not from sadness alone. Something else was there. Something colder. When I looked at myself in the small hallway mirror, I saw exactly what she saw. An older woman. Simple clothes. Quiet presence. Harmless. I almost smiled, because she had no idea who I really was. When I returned to the living room, Claire ended her call quickly. Ryan was scrolling through his phone. "I think I'll head out," I said calmly. "So soon?" Ryan asked. "It's getting late." He hugged me. For a brief second, I felt the little boy he used to be, the one who needed me, who trusted me completely. "Thanks for everything, Mom," he said. "Everything." Claire gave me a polite nod. "Drive safe, Emily." Polite. Always polite. Never kind. The drive home was quiet. The city lights blurred past my window as my thoughts settled into something sharper, clearer. For years, I had mistaken tolerance for love. That night, something shifted. When I parked outside my building, modest, old, unremarkable, I didn't get out right away. I just sat there, staring at the dark windows above. They thought I was just surviving. They thought I needed them. I let out a quiet breath. Monday was coming, and Monday would change everything. For them. Not for me. I had already changed. Monday mornings have always been my favorite. There's something about the quiet discipline of them, the sense that the world is resetting while most people are still half asleep, unprepared for what's coming. For me, it has never been about routines alone. It's about control. And that particular Monday, I woke up with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. I got out of bed at 5:30 a.m., as I had done for decades. No alarm needed. Habit is stronger than any clock. The apartment was still, wrapped in that early morning silence that makes even the smallest sound feel significant. I moved through my kitchen slowly, deliberately, brewing my coffee black, no sugar, the way I've always liked it.
No distractions. No indulgences.
Just focus. I sat down at my small kitchen table, opened my laptop, and stared at the screen for a moment before logging in. If someone like Claire had seen me then, she probably would have been surprised, maybe even amused. In her mind, I was someone who barely knew how to send an email. That assumption had always worked in my favor. The system loaded quickly. Numbers, properties, accounts, everything exactly where it should be. My world, not the one they saw, not the one I let them believe in. I scrolled through the list, passing building after building, each one a quiet reminder of choices I had made long before Ryan ever met Claire. Years of work, smart decisions, sacrifices no one ever asked about. I never needed recognition. I needed independence. And I had it. Then I found what I was looking for. Their address. Unit 5C. I paused, resting my fingers lightly on the keyboard. Not because I was hesitating, but because I wanted to be precise. This wasn't anger. Anger is messy. This was something else. Adjustment. Correction. For 5 years, they had been living far below market rate. A lucky deal, Ryan had once called it. Claire liked to brag about it, too, how they had secured such a beautiful place through connections.
Yes.
Connections. Just not the ones they imagined. I opened the lease file and reviewed it carefully. Every clause, every condition, everything legal, documented, clean. I don't make impulsive decisions. I make informed ones. Then I updated the number.
Triple the rent.
Still within legal limits. Still fair, by the standards of the market they so desperately wanted to belong to. I generated the official notice, printed it, and placed it into a plain envelope.
No emotion. No explanation.
Just business. Because that's what it had always been. They just never realized it. By 9 a.m., I was already outside their building. A place Ryan loved to show off. He used words like exclusive, high-end, well-located. I wondered if he would use those same words a month from now. I walked in like I owned the place. Because I did. The hallway was quiet.
Clean.
Neutral. No personality, just like every other building designed to impress people who confuse price with value. I stopped in front of their door. For a brief second, I imagined Claire inside, probably on her phone, maybe planning another unnecessary upgrade, another expense they couldn't truly afford without help they never acknowledged. I slid the envelope under the door, and just like that, it was done.
No confrontation.
No raised voices. Just consequences delivered quietly. Back home, I didn't wait nervously. I didn't pace. I didn't second-guess myself. I made breakfast. I watered my plants. I even read a few pages of a book I'd been meaning to finish, because I knew the call would come. And it did. 11:52 a.m. Right on time. I let it ring twice before answering. "Hi, sweetheart," I said calmly. "Mom, something's wrong." Ryan's voice was tight, strained. I could already hear the confusion underneath it. "What happened?" "We got this notice from the management company. They're raising the rent. A lot." "How much is a lot?" I asked, though I already knew. It's insane. It's more than double."
No, triple.
He exhaled sharply. "There has to be a mistake." I leaned back in my chair, keeping my tone steady, concerned, but not too much. "That does sound unusual. Did you call them?" "I did. They said it's final. Legal. Effective next month."
He paused.
They didn't even try to explain it. Of course they didn't. They sounded cold, Mom. Like they didn't care at all. I almost smiled. "I'm sure there's a reason," I said gently. "Maybe the market changed." "The market doesn't change overnight like this."
No.
"But perception does." "What does Claire think?" I asked. There was a silence. Then he sighed. "She's not taking it well." I could imagine. Tears, frustration, anger. Not because of loss, but because of inconvenience. "I'm sorry you're dealing with this," I said, and that part was true. Not sorry for the decision, but sorry it had taken me this long to make it. "Mom," his voice softened slightly. "I hate to ask, but could you help us? Just temporarily. Until we figure something out." There it was. The familiar pattern. The quiet expectation. The unspoken assumption that I would always step in. Always fix it. I looked around my apartment, simple, quiet mine. "I wish I could," I said carefully, "but things are tight right now."
A lie.
But a necessary one. "Oh, okay." Disappointment crept into his voice, though he tried to hide it. "I understand." "No, you don't," I thought. "But you will." We ended the call shortly after. I placed my phone down and sat in silence for a moment, letting everything settle. It wasn't about money. It had never been about money. It was about the way they saw me, the way she saw me, and the way I had allowed it for far too long. Later that afternoon, my phone rang again.
Claire.
I let it ring longer this time before answering. "Emily," she said, her voice softer than usual, carefully measured. "I hope I'm not bothering you." "Not bothering." Interesting. "Of course not. What's going on?" I spoke to Ryan. "About the rent situation." A pause. "I was wondering maybe you could co-sign a loan for us? Just to help stabilize things." Stabilize. Such a convenient word. "I don't think I can do that," I replied calmly. Another pause, shorter this time. "I see." The warmth in her voice faded slightly. "Well, if you change your mind, I'll let you know." We both knew I wouldn't. After the call ended, I stood up and walked to the window. The city stretched out in front of me, busy, unaware, indifferent. Somewhere out there, Claire's already trying to regain control. Trying to fix a situation she didn't understand. Trying to manipulate a system she thought she could navigate. But she had made one mistake. She underestimated me. And that's not something people usually get to do twice. I took a slow breath and allowed myself the smallest hint of satisfaction. Not revenge. Not anger. Just balance. Finally restored. 3 days passed before Ryan showed up at my door unannounced, and in those 3 days, I learned something interesting. Silence can be louder than any argument. No calls asking for help, no casual check-ins, no polite messages from Claire pretending everything was fine. Just absence. The kind that tells you people are scrambling behind the scenes, trying to regain control without admitting they've already lost it. So when I heard the familiar sound of a key turning in my lock that Thursday afternoon, I knew exactly what was coming. I was in the living room, tending to my plants, African violets lined neatly along the window, each one carefully maintained. It's funny how people underestimate things that require patience.
Plants.
Investments.
People.
They all reveal their truth over time, if you're paying attention. I set the watering can down before he even stepped inside. Mom, Ryan's voice echoed, uncertain, like he wasn't sure what kind of reception he'd get. I'm here, I replied. He walked in, and for a moment I didn't recognize him, not because he looked different, but because he looked worn down. His posture was off, his eyes tired, his usual confidence replaced with something closer to tension. His suit was wrinkled, like he hadn't bothered to fix it properly, and his hair, always so carefully styled, looked rushed, careless. Emily, I mean, Mom, he corrected himself, forcing a weak smile. Do you have a minute? I always have time for you, I said, gesturing toward the sofa. He sat down heavily, like the weight of the last few days had finally caught up with him. For a moment, neither of us spoke. I let the silence stretch, not to make him uncomfortable, but because I wanted him to fill it himself. I need to ask you something, he said finally, and I need you to be honest with me. That caught my attention, though I didn't show it. Of course. He leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees, staring at the floor like he was trying to piece together something that didn't quite make sense. Do you know anything about our landlord? The company, Hastings Group? There it was. The first real crack. I kept my expression neutral. Should I? I've been looking into them, he continued, his voice tightening, trying to understand why they'd suddenly raise the rent like that. It doesn't add up. And what did you find? Not much. That's the problem. He looked up at me now, his eyes searching my face carefully. They own a lot of properties. More than I expected. Different parts of the city. Even some commercial spaces. But there's almost no personal information about who runs it. Everything's hidden. Clean. I nodded slowly, as if I were processing this for the first time. That sounds like a well-structured business. Yeah, he said, but there was hesitation in his voice. Too well-structured. I stood up and walked to the kitchen, giving myself a moment to think, not because I needed time, but because I wanted to control the pace of the conversation. I poured him coffee exactly how he liked it. Some habits don't fade, no matter how much things change. When I handed him the mug, he gave me a small, distracted nod. Thanks. He took a sip, then exhaled slowly. There's something else, he added. For the past 5 years, our rent has been way below market. I didn't think much of it at first. I just assumed we got lucky. But now, he shook his head. It feels intentional, like someone wanted us there. That was closer than I expected him to get this quickly. And why would someone do that? I asked. I don't know, he admitted. That's what's bothering me. He leaned back, running a hand through his hair. Claire thinks it's personal. I almost smiled at that. Personal. I repeated. She says no company would make such a sudden change unless there was a reason. Something targeted. He hesitated. She's been on edge. Paranoid, even. Paranoid. Interesting choice of word. Maybe she's just stressed, I said calmly. It's a big change. It's more than stress, he replied quietly. She keeps saying someone's trying to push us out. I held his gaze for a moment, then asked softly, Do you think that's true? He didn't answer right away. I don't know what to think anymore. That was honest. And honesty, even delayed, matters. I sat down across from him, folding my hands neatly in my lap. Ryan, what are you really asking me? He hesitated again, and this time I saw it clearly, doubt. Not just about the situation, but about me. I'm asking if you've been helping us, he said finally. With the rent. A direct question. Carefully chosen. I felt something tighten in my chest, not guilt, not fear, but something closer to inevitability. No, I said calmly. It wasn't a lie. I had never paid their rent. I simply chose what it would be. He studied my face for a long second, as if trying to catch something, a shift, a hesitation, anything that would confirm his suspicion. But I gave him nothing. After a moment, he nodded slowly. Okay. Not convinced, but not certain either. That's what I thought, he added, though his tone suggested otherwise. I let the conversation breathe before shifting it. Have you looked at other places yet? He let out a quiet, humorless laugh. Do you know how expensive things are right now? He gestured vaguely around the room. Anything we can afford looks like this. I followed his gesture, letting my eyes move calmly across my apartment. The simple furniture, the modest decor, the quiet order of everything. Like what?
I asked.
He hesitated, realizing too late how that sounded. I didn't mean it like that, he said quickly. It's just, Claire's used to something different. Of course she is. There's nothing wrong with simple, I said. I know, he replied, but the uncertainty in his voice betrayed him. No, you don't. The silence returned, heavier this time. Then he spoke again, more quietly. She suggested something yesterday. I raised an eyebrow slightly. What kind of something? He looked uncomfortable now, shifting in his seat. She thinks maybe you shouldn't be living alone anymore. I felt my expression still, even as something cold settled in my chest. Go on. She said there are places, nice places, where you'd have support. Meals, activities, people your age. He avoided my eyes. And it might actually cost less than what you're spending now.
Less.
Efficient. Convenient. So, her solution to your financial problem is to relocate me? I asked evenly. It's not like that, he said quickly. She just thinks. She thinks I'm a burden. No, he said, but there was hesitation again. Always hesitation. I leaned back slightly, studying him. Ryan, I said calmly, look at me.
He did.
I am not fragile. I am not confused. And I am certainly not ready to be placed somewhere convenient. I know that, he said softly. Do you? That question lingered longer than anything else I'd said. He didn't answer. After a while, he stood up, clearly overwhelmed. I needed to understand what's going on, he said. And now, I understand even less. I nodded slightly. Sometimes that's the first step. He gave me a tired look, then headed for the door. Let me know if you hear anything, he said before leaving. I will. The door closed behind him, and the apartment fell silent again. I remained seated for a long moment, staring at nothing in particular. The cracks were there now, small, but spreading. And once something starts to break, it rarely stops halfway. I reached for my phone and scrolled to a familiar contact. It was time to prepare the next step. Not because I wanted to escalate things, but because they already had. They just didn't realize it yet. By the time Friday arrived, I was no longer waiting for things to unfold. I was guiding them. There's a difference. Waiting is passive, uncertain, almost hopeful. Guiding requires acceptance. It means you already know where things are going, and you simply allow others to catch up to the truth at their own pace. That morning, I woke up with the same calm clarity I had felt all week.
No hesitación.
No second thoughts. Just a quiet understanding that some conversations can't be avoided forever. The documents had been prepared the night before. Neatly printed. Legally precise. Impossible to misunderstand. I had gone through them twice, not because I doubted the content, but because I respect finality. Once something is revealed, it can't be taken back. And this would change everything. At around 10 a.m., I received confirmation that the envelope had been delivered.
Signed.
Accepted. I didn't need to imagine Ryan's reaction. I knew it. Confusion first, then disbelief, then the slow, heavy realization that something fundamental had shifted. The call came exactly 23 minutes later. I picked up before the second ring.
So,
There was no greeting on his side this time. Mom, what is this? His voice wasn't just tense, it was strained, like he was trying to keep himself from unraveling. What are you referring to? The documents, he said. Legal documents. From a law firm. They say you own our building. I didn't answer immediately, not to create drama, but because silence forces people to confront their own thoughts before you give them yours. Yes, I said calmly.
Ido.
The silence that followed was heavier than anything else in the conversation. I could hear his breathing change, sharper now, uneven. How? He finally asked. How is that even possible? I bought it 6 years ago. The previous owner was selling under pressure. It was a good opportunity. A good opportunity, he repeated, like the words didn't belong in the same sentence as what he was processing. Mom, this isn't just some small investment. This is a full building.
I'm aware.
Do you own anything else? He asked, quieter now. Yes. Another pause. How much? I considered the question for a moment, not because I didn't know the answer, but because I knew what it would do to him. Several properties, I said. Enough to be comfortable. That's not an answer. No, I agreed. But it's the one I'm giving you. He let out a slow breath, somewhere between frustration and disbelief. All this time, he said, you've been living like what? I asked gently. He stopped. Because there was no answer he could give that wouldn't reveal more than he intended. I just don't understand why you didn't tell me, he said instead. That question, that one mattered. Because I wanted to be seen for who I am, I replied calmly. Not for what I have, but we're family. Yes, I said, which is exactly why it mattered.
He was quiet again, processing.
Recalculating everything he thought he knew. And the rent, he asked finally. All this time was that you too? Yes. Another silence. This one longer. He exhaled slowly, like something inside him had finally clicked into place. Oh my God. For 5 years, I continued, you've been paying significantly less than the market rate. I made that decision. Why? Because you were starting your life. Because I wanted to help. And now you're paying what everyone else pays. But we can't afford that, he said, his voice tightening again. That's not my responsibility, I replied, still calm. It wasn't harsh. It was true. There's a difference. That's not fair, he said. Fair. I repeated. You lived in a place you couldn't afford for 5 years. That was generous. This is fair. I could hear movement in the background, a door opening, footsteps, then a familiar voice. Is that her?
Claire.
Ryan hesitated.
Yeah.
Give me the phone. There was a brief struggle, not physical, but verbal, before her voice came through clearly. Emily, she said, dropping all pretense. What exactly are you trying to do? I leaned back in my chair. Clarify reality. You've been lying to us, she snapped. Pretending to be something you're not. I never pretended, I said. You assumed. That's the same thing.
No. Irraplia.
It isn't. She exhaled sharply, clearly losing patience. You let us believe we were building something on our own. You were, I said, just not as independently as you thought. That's manipulative.
No. Incorrecta.
That's generosity, without advertisement. There was a brief silence, then her tone shifted, sharper, more aggressive. So this is punishment then? Because of something I said? There it was. Finally. Honesty. This isn't punishment, I said evenly. This is adjustment. Don't play games, she snapped. You heard me that night, didn't you? Yes. Another pause.
Short. Tense.
You were eavesdropping. I was cleaning, I replied, in a home I helped pay for. She didn't respond immediately. For the first time, I could feel something different on her end. Not anger, not confidence, uncertainty. Look, she said finally, her voice shifting again, softer now but controlled. Maybe I said things I shouldn't have, but you're blowing this out of proportion. No, I said quietly.
I'm responding proportionally.
You're ruining our stability over one conversation. One conversation doesn't define behavior, I replied. It reveals it. Silence. Heavy. Unavoidable. Then Ryan's voice returned. Mom? Yes. How did it make you feel? He asked. That question surprised me. After everything, that was what he chose to ask. I took a moment before answering. It made me realize I had been ignoring the truth, I said. For a long time. I'm sorry, he said quietly. I know you are, I replied. And I meant it. But understanding comes with consequences. And consequences don't disappear just because someone finally sees the truth. I love you, he added. I know, but this is a lot. Yes, I agreed. It is. There was nothing more to say after that. We ended the call without resolution. Because some situations don't resolve immediately. They evolve. I placed my phone down and sat in silence for a moment. Not overwhelmed. Not emotional. Just aware. Everything was out now. No more assumptions. No more illusions. Just truth. And truth, I've learned, has weight. It shifts relationships. Reveals priorities. Forces decisions. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out over the city again. Somewhere out there, they were talking, arguing, blaming, trying to regain control of something they had never truly understood. But control was never the point. Clarity was. And now they had it. Whether they knew what to do with it was another question entirely. Sunday morning arrived with a strange kind of stillness, the kind that usually comes before something inevitable. I had been expecting them, though they hadn't called to say they were coming. Some things don't require confirmation. You just know. When I saw them through the window walking toward my building, I didn't feel nervous, or angry, or even curious. Just ready. Ryan looked different again. Not just tired this time, but worn down in a deeper way, like something inside him had finally started to shift. Claire, on the other hand, walked with purpose, her posture straight, her expression tight, her movements controlled. If someone didn't know better, they might think she was walking into a negotiation. In a way, she was. I opened the door before they knocked. Come in, I said simply. Claire stepped inside first, her eyes immediately scanning the apartment again, but this time, not with quiet judgment. This time, she was measuring, recalculating, seeing everything through a different lens. Ryan followed more slowly, closing the door behind him. We need to talk, Claire said, her voice sharp, direct, stripped of any politeness she used to pretend. I assumed as much, I replied, gesturing toward the living room.
Seat.
Ryan sat. Claire didn't. She stayed standing, arms crossed, as if she didn't intend to stay long. That told me everything. Let's not waste time, she continued. What do you want? I raised an eyebrow slightly. That's an interesting question. You know exactly what I mean, she said. What will it take for things to go back to the way they were? There it was. Not apology. Not reflection. Negotiation. I sat down slowly, taking my time, letting the silence stretch just enough to make the moment uncomfortable. Why would I want that? I asked calmly. Because we're family, Ryan said quietly, stepping in before Claire could respond. Families help each other. I looked at him, really looked this time. Yes, I said. They do. Then I shifted my gaze to her. But help and respect are not separate things. Claire exhaled sharply, clearly irritated. So this is about respect now. It always was. She shook her head, letting out a short, incredulous laugh. You're seriously going to destroy our lives over one comment? Destroy? I repeated. You're still living in a luxury apartment. You're simply paying what it actually costs. You know we can't afford it. Then you're living beyond your means. The words landed harder than anything else I had said so far. Ryan shifted uncomfortably. Mom. But Claire stepped forward, cutting him off.
Fine, she said.
Let's be honest then. You've been controlling this entire situation from the beginning. You made us dependent. No, I said calmly. I made your life easier. You chose to depend on that. That's the same thing. It isn't, I replied, because I never asked for anything in return. She laughed again, but this time there was tension in it. That's not true. You expected gratitude. No, I said. I expected basic respect. The room fell quiet for a moment. Ryan looked between us, clearly caught in the middle, clearly struggling. Claire, he started. But she wasn't done. You want respect? She said, her voice rising slightly. Then here's honesty. You drive me crazy. Your constant advice, your outdated opinions, the way you insert yourself into everything. You show up dressed like, she hesitated, then continued anyway, like you don't belong in our world. Ryan flinched. Claire, stop. No, she snapped. She wants honesty, right?
Fine.
I didn't interrupt. I let her speak. Because this was the truth she had been holding back. You embarrass us sometimes, she continued. Ryan works hard to build a certain image and I don't fit into it. I finished for her. Yes. The word hung in the air.
Clear.
Unapologetic. I nodded slowly. Thank you, I said. That caught her off guard. What? Thank you for finally being honest. She frowned, clearly not expecting that reaction. Then I stood up and walked to the shelf, pulling out a thick folder. If we're being honest, I continued, placing it on the table, then let's be completely honest. I opened it and spread the documents out in front of him. Receipts, statements, records, 5 years of numbers. Ryan leaned forward immediately, his eyes scanning the pages. Claire didn't move at first. What is this? She asked. This, I said calmly, is everything I've contributed to your life over the past 5 years. Ryan's face changed as he read. Confusion, then shock, then something heavier. Mom, this can't be right. It is. He flipped through more pages. Rent adjustments, car payments, transfers, gifts. His voice grew quieter with each word. This is hundreds of thousands. Yes. Claire finally stepped closer, looking down at the documents. Her expression shifted. Not soft. Not apologetic. Just stunned. I never asked for this, she said. No, I agreed. You didn't. Then why are you holding it against us? I'm not, I said. I'm showing you reality. Ryan looked up at me, his eyes glassy now. I didn't know it was this much. I know you didn't. And you never said anything. I didn't need to. Why not? Because I wasn't giving it to you for recognition. The room fell quiet again, but this time it felt different. Heavier. More real. I turned to Claire. You said I don't belong in your world, I said calmly. But your world has been built on support you didn't even acknowledge. She didn't respond, because there was nothing she could say. I never asked you to like me, I continued. I never ask you to agree with me, but I did expect you not to treat me like something you had to tolerate. Ryan wiped his face quickly, trying to regain composure. I'm sorry, he said. I should have seen this. You trusted her, I said. That's not a crime. But I let it happen. Yes, I said quietly. You did. Claire straightened, her composure returning, but it was thinner now, more fragile. So what now? She asked. You've made your point. What do you actually want? I looked at her for a long moment before answering. I want you out of my building. The words landed like a final verdict. Ryan froze. Claire's expression hardened instantly. You can't be serious. I am. You're evicting us? I'm terminating your lease. I corrected. You have 30 days. That's insane, she snapped. We'll fight this. You're welcome to try. Ryan stood up now, clearly shaken. Mom, please don't do this. I looked at him, and for a moment I felt it, the old instinct to soften, to fix, to protect. But I didn't, because this wasn't something I could fix for him anymore. Ryan, I said gently, you can find another place. He swallowed hard. And Claire? That was the real question. I didn't answer it directly, because I didn't need to. Silence did it for me. Claire stepped closer to him. Tell her she's being unreasonable, she said. Tell her this isn't happening. But Ryan didn't speak. He just stood there, thinking. For the first time in a long time, really thinking. I need a minute, he said finally. Claire stared at him in disbelief. Are you serious right now? Just wait outside, he said quietly. Reluctantly, she left. The door closed. And suddenly it was just the two of us again, like it used to be. Ryan sat back down slowly. What if she changes? He asked. I met his eyes. Do you believe she will? He didn't answer, because he already knew. Some people don't change when they're confronted. They adapt. They adjust. They hide better. And deep down, he understood that. 3 months passed before I heard the key turn in my door again, and by then, everything had already settled into something new. Not better in the way people usually expect, not happier in some loud, obvious sense, but quieter, steadier, more honest. Change rarely feels good while it's happening, but once the dust settles, you begin to see what was necessary and what was simply overdue. I was in the kitchen that afternoon, slicing apples for a pie. Not because there was a special occasion, but because I wanted to. That alone felt like a luxury, doing something without it being tied to obligation, expectation, or someone else's approval. The apartment was filled with the soft scent of cinnamon and warm light from the window, the kind of calm that doesn't demand attention but settles around you gently. When the door opened, I didn't rush. I already knew who it was. Hey, Mom. Ryan's voice sounded different.
Not forced.
Not tense. Just real. Hi, sweetheart, I replied, turning toward him. He stepped inside slowly, holding a small bouquet of flowers, simple ones, nothing extravagant. Daisies. The kind people overlook because they aren't expensive enough to impress anyone. But they last. And they're honest. These are for you, he said, handing them to me. They're beautiful, I said, and I meant it. He smiled slightly, though there was still something careful in it, like he was learning how to exist in this new version of things. We moved into the living room, and for a moment, neither of us spoke. Not because there was tension, but because there didn't need to be immediate conversation. That was new, too. I wanted to thank you, he said finally. I raised an eyebrow slightly. For what? For not fixing things, he replied. That wasn't the answer I expected. I'm not sure most people would say that, I said. I know, he admitted. But if you had helped us again, if you had made everything easier, I probably would have stayed exactly the same. I studied him quietly. There was no defensiveness in his voice now.
No excuses.
Just awareness. That doesn't make it easy to hear, I said. It shouldn't be easy, he replied. Fair enough. He reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope, placing it carefully on the table between us. What's this? I asked. A start, he said. I've been going through everything, the numbers, the records you showed us. I didn't realize how much you'd done. Not just financially, but everything. I opened the envelope and glanced inside.
A check.
Not large enough to change anything, but large enough to matter. You don't have to do this, I said. Yes, I do, he replied firmly. Not because you're asking for it, but because I need to understand responsibility. I've been avoiding that for a long time. I closed the envelope and set it aside. I appreciate that, I said. We sat in silence for a moment before I asked the question that had been in the back of my mind since he walked in. How are things now? He exhaled slowly, leaning back into the sofa. Different, he said. Claire and I separated a few weeks after everything. I nodded, not surprised, not relieved, just acknowledging it. She moved to another city, he continued. Staying with her sister, I think. I'm sorry, I said. He looked at me, studying my face carefully. Are you? He asked. I considered that honestly. I'm sorry your marriage ended, I said. But I'm not sorry you're no longer in a situation that was hurting you. He nodded slowly. That's fair. There was no anger in him now. No need to defend her. That told me more than anything else. What changed? I asked. He looked down at his hands for a moment before answering. The day after we left here, he said, she started calling people. Friends, co-workers, anyone who might influence you. She told them you were unstable, that you were being manipulated, that something was wrong with you. I felt the words, but they didn't land the same way they would have before. Distance changes impact. And when that didn't work? I asked. He let out a small, humorless laugh. She tried to turn me against you completely. Said you were controlling, that you were trying to destroy our life because you were jealous. Jealous, I repeated. Yeah, he said. That's when something finally clicked. He looked up at me again. I realized I had never heard her say anything genuinely kind about you. Not once. Every conversation was either criticism or expectation. That part didn't surprise me, but hearing him say it, that mattered. I should have seen it earlier, he added quietly. Maybe, I said, but seeing it at all is what counts. He nodded. I moved into a new place, he continued. Nothing fancy. Smaller.
Cheaper. Meaning.
And how does that feel? Terrifying, he admitted, but also good. Like I'm finally living within reality, not some version of it. I smiled slightly. That's a valuable place to be. I've been cooking, he added. Not very well, but I'm learning. I'd be happy to help with that. I was actually hoping you'd come over next week, he said.
Dinner.
Nothing complicated. I'd like that. We sat there a while longer, talking about small things, his job, his new routine, the way his life had shifted in ways he hadn't expected. There was something different in him now. Not perfect, not fully formed, but real. Before he left, he paused near the door. Mom, yes. Are you happy? The question lingered, not because it was difficult, but because it deserved a real answer. I'm at peace, I said. He nodded slowly. I think I'm getting there too. Good, I replied. After he left, the apartment felt quiet again, but not empty. There's a difference between those two things, and it took me a long time to understand it. Empty is something missing. Quiet is something settled. I returned to the kitchen, finishing the pie I had started earlier. The routine felt grounding, familiar, mine. No expectations attached. No performance required. Later, As the evening light softened and the city outside slowed into its night rhythm, I sat by the window with a cup of tea, thinking about everything that had happened. The years I had spent giving without boundaries. The moment everything shifted. The consequences that followed. And what remained after all of it. Respect. Not demanded. Not purchased. But finally present. My phone buzzed softly on the table beside me. A message from Ryan. Don't forget, next week. I'll try not to burn the kitchen. I smiled. Looking forward to it, I replied. I set the phone down and looked out at the city once more. Somewhere out there, life was continuing as usual, people chasing appearances, building fragile versions of success, mistaking comfort for stability. But here, in this small apartment that had never needed to impress anyone, I had something far more valuable.
Clarity.
And with it, peace. Not the kind that comes from everything going right, but the kind that comes from finally seeing things as they truly are, and choosing not to look away.